I'm Jen Valenga, and this is the Ditch Your Backup Plan podcast. Stories of rewarding careers between starving artist and celebrity to give you the inspiration to follow a risky career path.
There's a lot of pressure to create something new, but I had this fear that whatever I was going to do wasn't going to be nearly as good. And if you look at any video that goes viral, they get one that gets really, really, really big, and then the rest of them have a significantly smaller impact.
If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for listening. And if you haven't done so already, go subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You might know Noah Lindquist from his YouTube viral videos, Wear a Mask, to the tune of Beauty and the Beast's Be Our Guest, and I Just Can't Wait for Vaccines from The Lion King. He's a former student and seriously talented. Here's my interview with Noah Lindquist. Hi, Noah. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. It's so good to hear from you. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
You graduated from Kansas State University December of 2019?
2018.
2018.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about where you are now and what's happened between the time that you graduated and this moment we're in with a shutdown.
Yeah, well, I'm currently living with my parents in Topeka, Kansas. When the pandemic hit, I lost my theater work in Kansas City. I also lost my day job. I was working at a coffee shop. And on top of that, my roommates in Kansas City, who were my brother and my sister-in-law, they recently discovered that they were going to be moving to North Carolina. So I had literally no reason to stay in Kansas City anymore. So it just made sense for me to move back home.
You're not the only one. I think there's a lot of recent grads who just decided to wait it out. How long do you expect you'll be in Topeka?
I will be in Topeka probably until I get a vaccine.
Yeah.
There are several contributing factors because my 97-year-old grandma lives with us. I play a big role in helping care for her. So there's that factor. There's also the factor of whether or not I get a vaccine anytime soon, and also when Kansas City Theater is going to open back up. I don't know if it's worth moving somewhere when I can't get the full benefit of that place.
That is really amazing that you're helping with your grandma. I'm sure that it makes an impact on your whole family and that you will not regret that time. I just know that. So let's just acknowledge that first. Were you always planning to start your career out in Kansas City? I mean, I know you had work there right away after school, but was the intention to stay there for a while and make that your home?
Towards the end of my college career, I knew that I wanted to live in Kansas City for about a year. I knew that I wanted to get some more credits, make some connections, get points for my equity card. I wanted to do all of that before immediately jumping into New York, partially because it's not like certain BFA programs where just you have an entire class move to New York.
Right.
And so you start, so the people who are in that situation kind of start their New York journey with this huge support system. And I just knew that I wasn't going to have that right after graduating. But I knew that if I was in Kansas City, I would be close to family. I would have a lot of friends there. I would work with people that I already know. And I just thought it was a good stepping stone for me.
Absolutely. And a lot of New York actors come through Kansas City. I mean, you met Marianne Torres at KC Rep. She was one of my early interviews last year.
Yeah.
And so you start to build a connection that way.
Right. Absolutely. And it was actually Marianne who kind of, I don't want to say convinced, but she kind of put it in the back of my head that Kansas City would be an option for me, because I saw her in Evita at KC Rep on the Kansas City K-State Theater trip.
Oh.
I saw her in that production, and during the talk back, she mentioned that Kansas City had the third largest number of equity theaters per capita behind New York and Chicago, and then Kansas City was third. I had no idea. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much work here. I mean, I got that vibe from the trip. We saw several shows in that weekend in Kansas City. But to know that statistic really put in my head that, yeah, Kansas City could be a great place for me. So that was where the seed was planted.
That makes me so happy. I didn't put together the fact that you were on that trip we took to see Evita and Marianne played the title role. And then later you went back, it's been 2 seasons now, that you were in Fun Home with Marianne, right?
Right. Yeah, so that all kind of came full circle.
Yeah, I love that. This is called Ditch Your Backup Plan. So has the pandemic changed your mind about what you wanted to do? I guess I should ask you first. Have you had a backup plan?
Yes, I came into college as a music education major.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me thought, yes, I'm going to study music education and I'm going to be a music teacher. Part of me accepted that that was what I was going to do, while this other part of me thought, you want to do theater, but you're going to get this music education major so that you have a backup plan. So literally, I ditched my backup plan. I had that mentality because there is a man from Topeka, Jeff Crady, who's now done several Broadway shows, and he's been very successful in New York. He studied music education at Washburn University, but kind of in the back of his head, thought about doing theater. He also, and I've actually talked with him about that. This was kind of before I got to college. I had these conversations with him. And I thought, well, he did it, so I can do that. Of course, not realizing at the time that we're all very different and different paths work for us differently. So it was a little naive of me to think that I was going to follow this exact path of this inspiration of mine. I had done 2 musicals at this point at K-State.
Do you regret that now? Not doing music education now that you're sitting at home?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah, not even a pause there, and you're certain you made the right path. Talk to me about that.
So I have some experience working with kids. I worked at a theater camp, a theater summer camp in Topeka for 2 summers, and I loved that job. I loved it so much. It was the summer after my senior year of high school and the summer after my freshman year of college. And I really loved that job. And I was their music director and choreographer. And I knew that in the future, at some capacity, I will be working with kids and teaching them performance of some sort. But I knew I don't want to do it immediately after I graduate, and I don't want to be confined to what I'm allowed to do in a public school. And another part of me thought, if I don't try theater now, I might regret it forever.
That's the thing, right? I mean, that is really the thing.
Right. And K-State at the time was known for having 100% job placement of their music education majors immediately after graduation.
It's a great program. It's true. If you're going to do music ed, it's really wonderful.
Right. It's a fantastic program. And that knowledge actually scared me more than comforted me, because I knew, well, I could immediately go get a job after graduation because I might have this moment of panic where I think, nope, I'm just going to go get a choir teacher job because that's safe. That's what's available for me right now. And then possibly get stuck there and never venture out into the world of theater. And so, yeah, knowing that they had such successful students made me not want to go through with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting reversal on the whole fear idea, as you had a little more fear of the safety net meant that, it might be too comfortable to pursue the thing you really love.
Right.
So what is your job while you're waiting it out?
I'm working at a coffee shop right now in Topeka.
And how are you feeling about it?
It's a little soul-sucking, to be honest. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are in this pandemic right now. Business is typically slow. When I was doing my coffee shop job in Kansas City, I would be at my shift, but then I'd think, oh, I have rehearsal tonight, or oh, we open next week. How exciting. Or I'm going to go on a date this weekend, or I'm going to hang out with this friend. So because I don't have any of that, it makes the job just that much more mundane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so many. I know you've listened to some of these episodes, and so many of the people I ask, what was your survival job? What did you do to sustain yourself? And you're in the middle of it, which was part of the reason to have you on, is say, what's it like to be a recent grad? Kind of, does it change everything? Have you had these moments of like, what am I doing? Why don't I go back to music ed? Why don't I look for something else? But it sounds like you're not feeling that way.
I have had a few moments where I thought, oh God, why did I go into this field? Not necessarily wanting to go back to music education specifically, but I also thought I was in such a transitional part of my career when the pandemic hit. So I never fully got my shot to do this, to really do this. And knowing that there's so much uncharted territory, it made me look more towards the future and made me think, well, I can't turn my back on this yet. I can't stop now because I haven't fully lived this career yet.
Yeah, it's not like you were trying to decide and this decided for you. You knew you were going into, and you were already working professionally.
I got my equity card 1 month before the pandemic hit. I was in New York. I was on a month-long trip in New York.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I had a perfect 1 month window in between Fun Home at KC Rep and my next Kansas City job. So I decided that I was going to go to New York and get my equity card because I was eligible for it at that point. I was going to go to tons of auditions, take some classes, see a lot of shows, meet up with people. So I was kind of on a roll because I had already been offered an equity contract for the spring before I had even gotten my equity contract. That would have been my second equity contract offered to me. I was offered one for Fun Home as well. So I was gaining a lot of momentum. And so I was really excited, and I had all of this anticipation of what was to come in my career, and then it all just went away.
Yeah.
I was at the final preview performance of Six on Broadway.
Oh.
The night before the Broadway shut down. My trip was going to end in like 3 days, and my next contract was going to start the next week. So I really just ended the trip by, I think, 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
That was when everyone was in full-blown panic mode.
Oh, well, in New York especially.
Yes. And I was so like, we had been hearing about the coronavirus going around, but I was going to bars. I was in packed Broadway houses, going to auditions, riding the subway, restaurants. I was doing all that because we just kind of knew, oh yeah, there are a few people in the country that have it.
Just think, when you're 97 and your grandchildren are taking care of you, you'll have a pandemic story about where you were when it all shut down on Broadway.
If I can remember.
Well, there's that. You have always been somebody who's been highly creative, lots of fun impersonations and voices. And so you and your family have been content creators, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic at the start, you started creating because you had the time to do that. So talk me through that journey up until this viral video for Wear a Mask.
Yeah. So in the first couple weeks of quarantine, when I was living with my family, I thought it would be funny to do a parody of On My Own from Les Mis, like, because I'm on my own. It was in what I call the romantic era of COVID. That whole month, the 2-month era, was romanticized a little bit in the media.
Well, also in Kansas, it wasn't really hitting us at that point.
No, it really wasn't. But it was just, everyone was talking about how beautiful this was. Like, oh, look at us coming together in this time of crisis. And this was when we did not know it was going to get as bad as it is now. So a lot of my song had to do with kind of the joys of being in quarantine, getting to just watch Netflix, not wearing pants, getting to avoid all of the people in your life you don't like. It was about that. And the video ended up doing really well on social media. It had several thousand views. And on YouTube, it also had several thousand views. So I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I wasn't expecting it to be as popular as it was. And then there was a little bit of pressure to create something else. But I really just didn't have a lot of ideas. And by the time it might have been time to come up with something else, I started feeling kind of depressed, as many people are lately, and especially people who were working in the arts. So I was feeling kind of uninspired. And at that time, I was actually working as an English teacher, online English teacher, through VipKid, English as a Second Language. And then in the summer, I got the coffee shop job because I just needed something more regular. I needed more regular hours. So I started working at the coffee shop, and they sold masks there. We sold handmade masks that our chef's mother was making. I was doing this thing where I was watching every single Walt Disney Animated Studios films in chronological order, and I was ranking them as I was going along because I thought, oh, I'm going to make this big blog or a vlog about me ranking the Disney movies, because that hasn't been done 100 times already. My mom watched Beauty and the Beast with me because that's one of her favorites. And after we watched the Be Our Guest number, my mom just said, rewind it, I want to watch it again. Because the both of us have loved that number in particular ever since I was a toddler. So later that week at the coffee shop, someone came in and they weren't wearing a mask. And then I think they ended up buying one. It's like, oh, thanks for buying one. You could have worn one before you came in, but whatever. And I just thought in my head, wear a mask, wear a mask. Oh my goodness, I have to write the rest of this. So during my lunch break that day, I outlined pretty much the whole first verse. It took a few more weeks to get the rest of it written. And then I recorded it with my friend Ashley Young and put it to the animated sequence from the movie. And when I first shared it on Facebook, the views weren't coming in like they were for the On My Own video.
Really?
No, it was very slow. And I thought, oh my God, did I post it at the wrong time? Is it not that funny? And then I called this was so dumb. I called my brother, who works in social media marketing, and asked him, do you think I should delete it and then put it up later? Or what do you think I should do? And he just gave me some advice that ultimately ended with, Noah, calm down, you're fine. And
right.
One thing he said was along the lines of, since your video has something to do with COVID, it's very possible that it's somewhat shadow banned, because anything related to COVID was kind of being moderated so that to avoid the spread of misinformation, although that ship had sailed entirely at that point. It wasn't until the next day where it kind of started taking off and more people on Facebook were starting to share it. And so I thought, okay, I'll take it. In the very beginning, I set my expectations too high. I was looking for that instant validation of, oh, within an hour, it's going to be shared by all these people. And, it was a completely wasted afternoon for me, being emotional and panicked about the quality or timing of the video. So yeah, everything worked out in the end. And I don't know if it was the day after I posted it where I started to see the celebrities sharing it. I think the very first celebrity to share it was Dan Stevens, who is known for Downton Abbey, and he played the Beast in the live action Beauty and the Beast film. And that was a big deal, but he didn't credit me. when he posted it. And I commented and said, "Thank you so much for sharing my video. Would you mind tagging me in this?" And then I put on my Instagram story, "Hey everybody, Dan Stevens shared my video. This is so exciting." I tagged him in it, and I told all my friends, "Will you please comment asking him to tag me and credit me in the video?" And so just like that, several people, even people I didn't know very well who followed me on Instagram, were saying, "Hey, please credit Noah Lindquist for making this." And then he did. And it was after that the other celebrities started coming in. I think Audra McDonald was the next morning, and I actually screamed the morning I saw someone sent me a screenshot saying Audra McDonald shared your video, and I was so happy and so overwhelmed. Another celebrity that really got me excited was Lea Salonga.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big deal. Yvette Nicole Brown, who is on the show Community, and she was also, a lot of people my age would know her from the show Drake and Josh on Nickelodeon. Yes, I've loved her ever since I was a little kid. And so she shared it, and she actually said, "Make sure to tag the wonderful artists who created this." And so I was really happy about that, because she was one of the only people to actually draw attention to crediting the creator. After that, I saw shares from Pee Wee Herman and Liz Calloway, who is the singing voice of Anastasia and has done several Broadway shows. Mm-hmm. Anne Hathaway was one of them.
Fun.
Oh God, it was a really, really exciting couple of weeks.
In the video On My Own, you were present. You were the person singing it.
Yes.
And in the Wear a Mask, you chose to be a voiceover, mm-hmm. and you did that very specifically. You didn't want to be doing the Randy Rainbow. It was a little too close to what Randy Rainbow does.
It was a little too close to what Randy Rainbow had already done. But also, I just knew it would be so much funnier if people were hearing these words coming out of a familiar face, that being a candelabra and a teapot.
Well, the teapot is going to drop the F-bomb, yeah.
Right. I knew it's going to be 10 times funnier if people see this teapot that they all know and love with an Angela Lansbury impersonation dropping the F-bomb and having a lot of bite to her. That's what's going to get people's attention. And it turned out that, that was a lot of people's favorite part. So I was so glad that I didn't put my own face in the video. The only downside to that was that Noah Lindquist, was not really associated with the video as much as it was just its own entity rather than something by a performer.
But those who are really interested, like, as you said earlier, have gone onto your YouTube and looked at all of your different videos.
I did see more engagement in my other YouTube videos. I started gaining a lot more followers on Instagram, and I ended up making a Twitter that day because it was being shared by this kind of well-known immunologist, and it was getting all of these shares and all of these views on Twitter. And I kind of felt like, I was like, oh gosh, I need to get in there. I need to go get in there and claim my work. So you
weren't on Twitter, Noah?
No, I was technically on Twitter, but it was an account that I hadn't used in forever. And I didn't even remember the password or anything. And then the immunologist said, everyone, we found who created this video. Go follow Noah Lindquist.
So, cool.
So I was really glad that I kind of swooped in there and claimed
quite a lesson.
That video. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You said that was a pretty exciting few weeks. And then was there any kind of letdown or what's come out of it?
Yeah, there was a huge letdown. Not in an emotional way, but I was so excited for 2 weeks straight because every day I was getting contacted by people and I was seeing articles pop up about the video and seeing new celebrities trickle in and share the video. So it was so exciting every single day for almost 2 weeks. And then it started kind of fading into the background, as anything that goes viral does. The internet is constantly producing something new. We can't hold our attention spans in this country for very long because there's just always something else to look at. And that's fine. That's just how it works. I was thrilled to have as long of a run as I did.
But that's been the journey of all art. A show runs for a certain period of time and then it's gone. A film has a premiere and it hits the box office and then it goes to home video. So that is the journey. It's just that self-created work by the artist is a hit or miss. Then it goes viral and it fades away like with anything. But I guess you learned some lessons from that. What do you think your biggest takeaway was?
First of all, I would say be patient. Because, like I said, I was looking for that instant validation. I was wanting within an hour for it to have all of these views and all of these shares, and that didn't happen. And I was really disappointed. And like I said, I wasted an afternoon feeling bad about myself for no reason when in just a couple days it started to take off. So patience was something I definitely learned from that.
What's the next? Oh, what is the thing that you got? Didn't you get some award in Topeka?
Yes, I was honored as one of the distinguished Kansans of the year.
What do you know?
Yeah, so that was exciting. And that announcement came, I believe it was December 2020. And at that point I was like, oh, cool, because the high had gone away. The high had been gone. I was almost a little embarrassed at that point because some of the people getting the distinguished Kansan honor that year were doctors and people who were bringing meals to people working in shelters and things that were a bit more charitable.
Don't even minimize what the artist does, Noah, because you probably made people wear masks who didn't wear them before or think about it in a different way. Don't do that. I'm not going to let you do that.
Okay, yes. No, I do. I did take a lot of comfort knowing that the video brought joy to a lot of people. That was really important for me, and that was a takeaway, knowing that it did make people happy. It gave people a laugh in an otherwise dark situation. I need to turn off my YouTube comment notifications. Not turn off the comments, but just turn off the notifications, because I'll just get a pop-up of someone cursing at me and calling me a liberal bastard or something.
And you're like, yeah, so?
And I'm like, okay. Yeah, so I just don't need those popping up on my phone daily, because I'm getting more of that now.
Yeah, I bet. But it's very nice to know.
Yeah.
It is nice to know that Kansas, the state of Kansas, recognized your work on that.
Yeah, that really was exciting. Just in a more subdued excitement.
So when we think about content creation, you did a few holiday things, and what is on the horizon? Have you been paralyzed a bit by that viral video that it was hard for you to create?
It was a little paralyzing for a while, actually. People were telling me, oh my gosh, you should do this video, like a parody of this from this Disney movie. Oh, you should do this from this. Oh, you should do I Can Social Distance from Hercules. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And then I looked, I was like, oh, Randy Rainbow already did that.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of pressure to create something new. But I had this fear that whatever I was going to do wasn't going to be nearly as good. It wasn't going to be as popular. And if you look at any video that goes viral at a particular artist's page, they get one that gets really, really, really big. And then the rest of them have a significantly smaller impact, just because these are the videos that, while they were successful, they did not go viral. They did not have that huge impact. And I suppose it was that fear that whatever I do, it's not going to be as good. So maybe I just won't make anything at all, was my irrational mindset.
I'm just not going to play.
Right. And then we had that talk, and then we put things into perspective. And I thought, well, think of all the musicals Sondheim has written and how many of them are known pretty much universally. Very few, a fraction of his musicals are known to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something every artist needs to accept. You're going to have some hits and you're going to have some misses and you're going to have some in-betweens. And I actually just started working on a new parody.
Very good.
Yes. And I'm also working on something that it's not going to be very public. It's something I'm going to write for a drag performer in Kansas City. But I got this idea and I immediately went to him because I thought you would be the person and the venue to perform this work. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Cool. I'm excited to see it. Have you gotten onto TikTok and done anything?
No, not yet. I have some, I'm kind of jotting down some ideas right now because I think it might be good to just kind of keep track of little things in life that make me laugh. Because I think the best humor is observational humor. Everyone loves seeing a dramatized comedic take on something that happens in everyday life. So I'm kind of keeping track of those, and maybe I'll kind of make a bunch of them at once and then kind of over time put them out. I don't know how people TikTok.
I know it is a thing. Maybe we don't. Maybe we say that is for the masses and we keep a different level for those who are trained. But I kind of feel that the world's moving. I mean, look at Ratatouille.
Yeah. That opened a ton of new doors for the future of musical theater and all performance, actually. So that was exciting to see the Ratatouille musical come to life.
Yeah, I mean, when I was teaching directing last semester, one of the grad students asked if he could do a scene from Into the Woods on Minecraft.
Oh.
And I was like, why not? And so he did it on Discord, and he had created these skins for the characters and built this whole stage. It was actually pretty interesting. I don't know that I'm the target audience necessarily, but I do think it was a very creative solution.
I actually remember when I was younger, a lot of people were recreating musical theater numbers on The Sims.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I remember watching a lot of those when I was younger. So that's an interesting, it's cool to hear that people are still doing that. Like, how can I recreate something out of something unconventional?
I still want to breathe with other people in the same space when we can breathe together again. I still think that live theater is the way to go, but it's fun to see other creations.
Yeah. Like speaking on the Ratatouille musical specifically, it kind of proved that we really can make musical theater accessible to the people who don't have the money to see a Broadway show, who don't have the money to fly to New York. Because think of all of the people in this country who are just dying to see a Broadway show, but just don't have the means for it.
Right.
So I really hope that some producers keep this thing going and start making these little online virtual musicals available to people, and also more live musicals being streamed. Mm-hmm. I think, like, I remember Newsies and Hamilton, She Loves Me, all those musicals being live streamed. I think we need so much more of that.
I've really enjoyed Broadway HD, and it's, if you can get Disney Plus, you should be able to get Broadway HD. I think it's $8.99 a month.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So what do you think has been the biggest risk you've had to take?
I think the risk is kind of just deciding you're going to go into performance. I think that in and of itself is a risk, because there is a lack of security. It's a very, very saturated and competitive field. And we know and accept that many people do not end up making a career out of this, yet so many of us jump into it anyway. So I'd say just that alone was the risk. And I decided that was what I was going to do after I had booked my first summer stock after my sophomore year of college.
And you have a lot of big risks ahead of you too, Noah.
Yeah.
And I hope you'll keep taking them.
I will.
Good. You have your equity card, which is pretty young to get that pretty early.
Yeah.
You have 3 million views and celebrity shares of a viral video you created from your own. So then have you made it?
Ooh, the have I made it question.
I have to ask it.
So my personal definition of making it is when you can pay all of your bills and have a little bit left over strictly from the art you create or that you perform. To me, that is what making it is. So I do not think I have made it yet.
Well, you're on your way.
Yes.
I think you have to see it to be it. And you mentioned Jeff Creedy, so shout out to him for inspiring you along the way. Who else have you had to see that you know you could put your plan in place?
So I actually have 2 aunts on my mom's side that have been on Broadway. They were just people who lived in Topeka and grew up in Topeka, and they got on Broadway. So actually knowing people who had done it made it seem more possible.
Yeah.
And made me realize, oh, these are just people.
Yeah, people who picked a hard job.
Yeah. My dad has his own little side business where he writes and produces jingles for local companies.
Okay.
And he sings on a lot of them. He writes the lyrics, he writes the melodies. So yeah, he has absolutely pursued an artistic endeavor and still does. And my mom has done a lot of community theater. So I've seen her in so many shows. It was really seeing her that made me see just how magical a theater production can be.
Did they have any misgivings about you following this path?
Absolutely. Yeah, they did. So before I had decided I was going to go to K-State, I was hoping to go to some sort of BFA program or just well-known musical theater program. And I auditioned for Oklahoma City University because I had a friend in Topeka that had gone there and had done all of their summer camps. And she was a year older than me and said, Noah, apply for OCU. Kristen Chenoweth went here and Kelly O'Hara. And so I thought, oh, okay. And they do have a good program. But I didn't grow up in an environment where everyone knew all of the top BFA schools. Like I didn't know any of this. In Topeka, nobody really knows. I didn't know anything about the Unified's audition, which is just like this, the big cattle call for all the top MT programs. I didn't have that. So I didn't really know where to go. I kind of had to figure out some things for myself, but I went to the OCU audition and I got accepted and I got a scholarship, but it was so expensive that even the scholarship barely made a dent in the tuition. And it was at that point where we kind of just decided, okay, we're not going to do this because any other school was going to be just as, if not more expensive. And we're not a super wealthy family. And I didn't want to take out a whole bunch in loans.
Did you leave K-State with any debt? Maybe that's too personal, but.
No, I did not.
Yeah. That's one of the pluses of a state school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I made one of the best connections I ever possibly could have made through Jerry J. Cranford. Working with him opened so many doors in Kansas City.
Yeah.
It worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
I can't remember which show, but there was something that Jay was directing in Kansas City, and he got you and a couple of other people audition slots that you wouldn't have maybe gotten otherwise. And I don't know if I remember the story the same way you remember it, but I think you chose not to show up.
Yeah.
And I think you maybe got read The Riot Act by our friend Jerry J. Cranford. And I think that was the moment at which you made a major shift, at least the faculty could see, a shift in your mindset on how you approached things. And I wonder if you have any, if you can tell that story through the lens of maybe some lessons learned.
Sure. So I was asked, and it was kind of sudden, but I was asked if I could audition for this one show in Kansas City. I just said, oh, sure. Sent in my headshot, sent in my resume without even really looking at what was happening. I realized that it was a summer show, but I realized that it was going to run into the school year. And I thought, oh, well, I can't do that. And I didn't really realize that until just before the audition. And I thought, well, I can't do this show. I can't do this show. So why would I audition? And so I just sent the company manager an email and said, hi, thank you so much. I won't be making it to the audition. Not realizing that was just a huge no-no. And I look back on it and I am kind of embarrassed.
Well, you're learning. I mean, you're in school to learn. Right.
It's like, yeah, we make mistakes and we learn from them. But yeah, I just thought, oh my God, I was so stupid to do that because, I had not done that much professional theater at the time. I didn't fully understand what was at stake for everybody involved, which includes the man who went and got the audition for me.
And would have worked out a way for you to do what you needed to do to be in school.
Right, exactly. And I didn't even think of that as an option. And so I just decided, oh, I'm not going to go to the audition. I should have done more research before I said yes to taking the audition slot. I absolutely should have done more research on that and knew what I was getting myself into.
You went to a program that happens to have all professionals teaching there.
Yeah.
And you got a state degree, so you got to leave college without debt and your equity card a couple months after graduating.
Oh, yeah. It was about a year after graduating where I got my equity card and a lot of that had to do with them lowering the number of weeks you needed. It was 50 and then they cut it to 25. I was fully prepared to do the 50 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need all of that time and all of that experience to get to the level to where an equity card is actually useful to me.
Yeah, because you can get the card and then sit around and not get any work when you might have been better off doing non-union a little longer to get more experience before you jump into the equity game.
Exactly. I knew I was moving to Kansas City at that point, and it's pretty well known in Kansas City that equity contracts are very competitive because they'll give a few, depending on the size of the theater. But then I started getting really consistent work in Kansas City and eventually got to a point where I was just getting offered roles in shows without an audition. So I was starting to feel a lot more comfortable about the possibility of being a union actor. And that's what gave me the confidence to get it while I was in New York.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of being in a smaller regional market like that is that you do make some of those connections that, it wouldn't happen that way in New York.
Right.
Well, I mean, it might, but
yeah,
probably not as likely for somebody coming from a program like you did. So what are your recommendations? What are you watching right now, reading, listening to? How are you spending your extra time?
I'm spending my extra time watching a lot of Will and Grace.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I've actually really enjoyed throughout the pandemic is this Instagram account called Let's Hear It for the Choice. It's a bunch of clips of either Broadway performances or some community theaters, college theaters. They're doing these musical theater numbers that everyone knows, but the performer is making a really bold and exciting choice. And it's really kind of inspiring. And it almost always has some sort of comedic commentary with it. So I really enjoyed that. There's also the Broadway Belters Instagram account, and they also have a podcast now available on Spotify, the Broadway Belters. I'd also encourage people just go down that YouTube rabbit hole of Broadway and musical theater. Watch people's cabaret performances. That's always fun because you're seeing people who you've never seen before doing their own takes on musical theater. It's fun. It's fun to see other people like you.
For sure. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
You can add me on Facebook, Noah Lindquist. I'm also on Instagram at noah.lindquist. And then on Twitter, I'm at Noah Lindquist 96.
Well, Noah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know it's got to be a really challenging time to be starting at the start of your career.
When you were first making these, I was like, ooh, that would be kind of cool to be on her podcast. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm Jen Belenga, and you've been listening to the Ditch Your Backup Plan podcast. Next week, the 50th episode features Elsie Escobar. She is podcast royalty. She's the community manager at Libsyn, which is a podcast hosting company, and she is the co-founder of She Podcasts, podcast production company for women. She also happens to have her MFA in acting. We'll be back here next week. Thanks for listening.